everybody on Wolvex Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days to Die. Alright, so I'm still hunting down those recipes I'm missing, and hopefully I can find some of the ones that I'm missing, because it'd be nice to get, you know, maybe the full set of steel armor. I'd like to get that silencer on my gun. I don't think the silencer really makes that big of a difference for what I'm doing, but you know, it'd still be nice to have, I guess. I'd also like to try out the sniper rifle, but if I can't find the recipe for it, not a whole lot I can do. So, this week we did play some tabletop stuff. We played Starfinder, the final mission in the Starfinder campaign. Not mission, the final... Ooh, that's loud. Turn down my headset a little bit here. The final fight in our Starfinder campaign. It was dangerous. It was crazy how poorly everything went real quick. So we're playing we were playing Dawn of Flames. Dawn of Flames might be what it's called, but don't quote me on that. And so we'd made it to this planet, and on the... No, it wasn't even a planet, it's a city floating inside the corona of a sun. And so everything's surrounded by like a force field and stuff, and like these separatists had taken over, and we're trying to push out all the non-Lashunta, which is one of the alien species in Starfinder. And so they had captured the council who runs the particular city we were in. And so I assume they must be like city-states. I didn't read apparently enough of the politics involving the town because it didn't matter to our story. And so but they'd captured the counselors, and so we were trying to get in there, and it's a weird little place. Trying to rescue them. And so for the most part, it's fairly... I don't know, I think some of it might be that it's their first time playing through Starfinder, and because we don't play it often enough, the rules aren't particularly sticking. And so, and then on top of that, it's the first time we're playing Starfinder. I know I've said that twice now, but because it is, we don't know any of the rules. And so I read through the book, and I took a bunch of notes to try and remember it, and I put them all down in like a... Oh, what's that program called? OneNote. OneNote's great. And so, you know, I've got all these notes about how Starfinder works in OneNote, and weird that that's all locked up. And so, that. A yucca juice smoothie. I don't need chrysanthemums, I can make those at home. And so, I know we're not playing it correctly. I know that there are some rules we're not following, and the fact that there are rules we're already not following makes me not like the game. I want to like Starfinder. I love sci-fi. I mean, I love D&D, right? Don't get me wrong. And so I we play a lot of 5e, and 5e is pretty simple compared to a lot of the other tabletop games I've looked at, and so it runs pretty smoothly once you get the hang of it, and so it's a lot easier to get into the rules for the most part in fifth edition D&D. Now there are a lot of specific rules that cause hassles. I know there was a thing about. Did I do this? No. I know there's a thing at one point, and I've talked about it. That was the invisibility spell and how the people who make the game interpret the rule as it's written down, because not because that's the way it should work, but that's because it's the way it's worded. But the nice thing about tabletops is, right, you don't have to play them the way they're written. You can make up your own changes that you think you should have, and you know, tweak the rules to fit your play style better. You know, so it's not that big a deal. But yeah, the invisible thing was one that we never used it. We never used it. Yes, there's a lot of invisibility, but we never used invisibility the way that it was in the online arguments. But we did argue about those online arguments. To the point where it was me, one of the DMs, and the other DM stating that I refuse to run my game using the rule the way that the guys who make the rules said that it should be read, because I thought it was the dumbest way to interpret the rule. And the other guy being like, well, you know what, that's what the guy said, so that's the way we use it. But he never actually remembered to use it that way, so we just continued to play it the way that I feel is correct. The issue is this, and they've corrected it. They're currently playtesting a new version of D&D. It'll be a while before it comes out, but they're currently playtesting it. And so they're, you know, they get out some of the rules, and then you read over the rules, and I have noticed that they've changed the wording on the invisibility stuff to match the way that I feel is the correct way to run it. So I think that's funny that they're like, the way the rules are written, this is the way it's supposed to go. And then, you know, when they get a chance to change it, they're like, oh, you know what, it really should be the other way. So I find that to be funny. Oh, I see, you climb up there and then you can climb down in here. Or you can just bust open the door like I did. Okay, let's get rid of these cobblestones. I got too much junk. Oh man. Wasteland treasures. Coffins are treasure troves. Interesting. Do I need to open coffins now? Listen, I've got so much leather. So I guess this is the trick. This is the whole trick to the invisibility thing that we were arguing over, was, in the D&D rules, sometimes they will have a rule, and the rule will have bullet points. And so the way you're supposed to read the rules, according to the people who make the rules, is each bullet point is a separate thing. Which would be fine. Which is fine most of the time, but when it comes to invisibility, it's dumb. And so the problem is that the bullet points separate being invisible from the effects of being invisible. And so what I mean by that is, like, part 1 of being invisible, you can't be seen. Part 2 of being invisible, while you're invisible, attacks made by you have advantage and attacks against you have disadvantage. Oh, well, this is like a cliff. And so the problem is that there are abilities that let you see through invisibility. And so the argument is, do you still get advantage on your attacks, disadvantage on attacks against you, if one of these other abilities removes the fact that you're invisible? And so the rule people are like, well, yeah, the way it's written, you got to read it, that yes, you would still have your advantage and disadvantage. I'm like, I'm not doing that, because that's stupid. Think about what you're saying. You're saying that I get these advantages because you can't see me. And so if you are no longer invisible because of some other advantage, therefore you shouldn't get those bonuses for being invisible anymore. I don't even know why this was a question. But they're like, oh yeah, the way it's written, you know, the rules state you get those bonuses as long as you're invisible. It doesn't matter if the other person can see you or not. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have that invisible condition if the other person can see you. Like, yes, if someone still can't see you, you would have those abilities because they can't see you. But the person who can see you. Case closed. You're not in, you don't have invisible to that person. So yeah. So anyways, that was one of our big arguments. So little things like that in 5e, but man, oof, in Starfinder, just trying to figure out how to do combat is crazy. I'm sure if Starfinder was your go-to, what's the word I want? Your go-to game, it'd be different, but it's not. D&D is our go-to game. 5th edition D&D, in particular, is our go-to game. And so trying to play Starfinder, using the Starfinder, like, combat mechanics, or any mechanics for that matter, is just crazy. Because in 5th edition, it's like, I want to rifle through this desk looking for things. So you're like, okay, roll a perception check. And that perception check is your perception, plus whatever you roll on a d20. The end. Done. And then you compare that to, dang it, I'm so out of space for things. This. Oh, leather gloves. I don't need that. Let's use that. I'm pretty sure I imagine I have some of these, but, you know. Oh, look. Get rid of this right here. And so, when you do the same thing in Starfinder, well, sure, you've gotta roll your d20, same as in 5e, but then there might be a circumstance bonus, there might be a racial bonus, there might be a cultural bonus, there might be a machine bonus. There's probably some, oh no, there's probably some negatives, based on how much light there is, and just too many things for me to enjoy the game. And so combat is the same way. It's like, are you standing? Were you ready for the attack? Well, that's a not a, I guess if you weren't ready for the attack, that's a negative. Do you have some cover? Well, that's a positive, or negative, depending on, you know, the amount of cover or whatever. And so there's just all these other little circumstance bonuses and all these other little bits that you have to figure out how to add in And it was too much. It was too much. We're looking at maybe trying some Pathfinder 2. I think that's probably a go. Okay, let me... No, that's not what I wanted. Let me... gas in this. There we go. Storage. Let me put some stuff in storage. Okay, that'll make my life a little easier. So anyway, so Starfinder. A lot of that we just ignored. I couldn't remember all the rules. There's so many rules. And so we get into the session last night, and today's Friday, 2 nights ago, I guess. And we get in there, and they've just got one fight left to finish off the book that we're playing. And so we get in the room, and it says that if the combat has already been going on outside the room, then the people are aware and they're prepared to attack whoever enters the room first. And so our wizard guy goes in the room first. And so I do the attack listed, and it's pretty massive. We only have like 24 hit points at this point in time in the game because we're like level 2. Because that's the other thing. D&D, you level up pretty fast and you get lots of new abilities, and Pathfinder / Starfinder, it takes a lot longer to level up, so you don't get new abilities very often, which I also don't like. Because the power-up is the thing that I love in games, right? Getting more powerful, going up that tech tree, right? Getting the bigger and better weapons, the bigger and better armor. And I will say that I find that a lot of these tabletop RPGs do not do well with weapon and armor upgrades. I don't understand why everything is so focused on like spells, because not everybody wants to play a spellcaster. And they're like, oh well, you know, it's really hard to balance the warrior against the wizard. I'm like, yeah, because you don't have any weapon and armor upgrades. You got, here's your sword, the end. This is a whole nother tangent, but playing through these pre-written adventures, because it takes a lot of time to run a homebrew campaign, so we don't really run a homebrew campaign, because none of us are willing to take the time to write one. Not that you can't write one as you play. I'm not saying it has to be written out ahead of time, but it does take like a couple of hours per session at least to get ready, right? If you're doing a homebrew, maybe less with some of the new tech available, but there's a lot of, you know, you gotta make the maps, you gotta plan out the loot, you gotta plan out the bad guys, you gotta position the bad guys on the maps in whatever format you're using, you know. If you have a storyline in your homebrew, then you gotta figure out how that all plays into your storyline. If you got NPCs, you want to have some idea what they're gonna say, you know. So it's a lot easier to do just a pre-written campaign. And the guy. And so yes, we mostly have been playing pre-writtens. We played a couple homebrews here and there, but they're short. I've started a couple of homebrews, but then it didn't go anywhere. I started the I really want a more fluid-based game. I'm sure there must be one out there I'm just not aware of, where instead of having the static, like, you know how Skyrim, in Skyrim, you, when you level up, you make your choices from a list of available choices, and so your character is more fluid in what it is. So if you want to put points into thieving, and then the next time you level up, you put points into spellcasting, and then you put some points into heavy armor or whatever, right? I want a game like that, but simple, like 5e is. And so I spent hours over a long period of time breaking apart 5th edition, and figuring out a system based off of actions that you do earning you points, and then that dictating when you had access to purchase using points you've earned new abilities, and what actual like points you had to earn. So there's like points for strength based things and points for wisdom based things, and then like linking some of the abilities together so that you had to have certain abilities already purchased to purchase the next one up the tree, if you will. So I spent a lot of time prepping that, and then it was too hard to keep track of. There was just too... I felt it slowed down the game too much to keep track of that many different things, because I guess some of it was I don't trust my players enough to let them handle their own points. And so the... Okay, so like, this is not finishing our Starfinder story here, but I'll get to it. I'll finish the Starfinder story. So for example, like, you'd attack with your sword, okay? Attacking with sword is pretty easy. And so what I want to do is I wanted to pull that apart so that, I want to pull that apart so that if you were, like in regular D&D, you might be a fighter, right? And so then you've got your fighter abilities that apply to that sword. And then you've got your basic strength bonuses, and then your proficiency, which is just a number that increases as you go up levels. So what I want to do is I want to make that proficiency a real thing, because in D&D, proficiency is not a real thing. You select a skill that you're proficient in, but there isn't a weapon proficiency. Right? I mean, there is, but it's like so basic and incorporated into your character that there's no like difference between one character and the next. So if you have two fighters, they're both proficient in all weapons, basically. And so I wanted to break that down a little bit, so that you could be proficient in a single weapon, like it would mean something. And so just a sword attack, did you use your dexterity to swing it? Because some weapons let you use dexterity. Did you use, that's the hardware. Books is down here. Did you, did you use your strength to swing it? And then once you did, then you would get 1 point in strength, or dexterity, depending on what you use to swing your weapon. And then you'd also get a point in that weapon, that specific weapon type. And so then, as you got enough points, well, then you would earn a proficiency bonus for that weapon. And so, and then also, I don't think I had proficiencies for the skills, so that it didn't go that crazy. Like if you use multi-attack, your multi-attack is going to get more powerful. No, it wasn't anything like that, but it was you get your proficiency for your weapon based off of how often you use that weapon. You get your... Okay, this little bookstore was terrible. Got no books here, man. Then it just opens up into a garage. Very disappointed by this town. This town let me down. I mean, I guess we can get better loot out of coffins now. But yeah, that doesn't particularly help me out. Look, there's my old base. This is my original town on here, right? And I moved because it's 1,000,000 miles from here to anywhere else. It's crazy. I got 1,000,000 miles my way back. Because this town let me down. I thought the bookstore might be bigger, and it's not. I shouldn't ever come back here. Your stores are too tiny to be bothered with. And I'm disappointed. So yeah, so we played that a little bit, but there was just too many things to keep track of. Like, every time they did something, there'd be like 2 or 3 things I'd have to mark down that they earned a point in it. And I really want that system to work, but I think there were too many sheets to flip back and forth to. If I had done it in Excel, then I could have automated it really easily. But the problem is that I don't know how to use Google Sheets the way I know how to use Excel. And I wasn't, I guess, willing to take the time to learn. I should probably get back in there one of these days. If I could automate parts of it, so, you know, you just add a point to the sword. When they attack with their sword, then, you know, it automatically puts a point into strength or something like that. I could probably fairly easily do that, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I still have all that information saved. It's not like it went anywhere. I just need to fine-tune it a little bit so we can get back into it. There's also, don't worry, I'm going to do the Starfinder thing. It's not going to take long. Was the issue was I wanted to do an isekai story, and so they didn't know anything, and that's basically why they started out, you know, with no skills, is because they only had present day Earth skills. And so, you know, the one guy was like, I'm gonna be a guy who worked on a farm. I'm like, okay. And the other guy's like, well, I'm gonna be a businessman, you know, working in the corner office at the brokerage firm or whatever. I don't remember exactly where he worked. But then the other DM, who's always wants to be super silly in everything, and it drives me crazy. He's like, I'm gonna be a stoner guy who works at a video rentals place. Like, ugh. And then, of course, he's gotta be like, you know, I drop him in this other world that's not Earth. And, you know, I'm like, alright, so this is what your guys are seeing. You know, they've been ripped from Earth. They're definitely in another world. They don't understand what's going on. You know, everything is strange. People are using magic. And so then the other demon is like, I think my guy would just be like, whoa, man, this is like some kind of crazy trip I'm having. And just go along with it. I'm like, ugh. Just gotta ruin everything, don't ya? Gotta ruin everything. Anyways, back to Starfinder real quick. So, Starfinder, in my meanderings of other D&D stuff. Yeah, so they got in the room. The wizard guy immediately gets attacked because he opened the door and stepped in. And like I said, we only got like 24 hit points, and he, bam, immediately hit for 8 damage. Like, just smash, right? And then, I'm gonna die because my motorcycle can't get up this hill. So then, it pretty much proceeded like that. It was so bad. None of our characters could roll high enough to hit the bad guys. And that's the other thing I don't like about Starfinder is everything's got like regular levels of AC like you'd expect in a D&D game, but none of your weapons give you bonuses that are high enough to hit. And so it's really infuriating because apparently you never get particularly holy crap, I'm gonna die. This stupid vulture. Get off me! Oh, crap. Dang it. Seriously? Oh, my bike is so far away. Stupid vultures! If those vultures hadn't been bothering me, I wouldn't have stopped there. So, yeah, it was really, really bad. We could not roll well, and so I actually had to like step down on their attacks because we were just getting wrecked because every turn the bad guys would roll in their 20s. Not 20, but they'd roll high enough that their attacks were landing in the 20s. And so we were just taking so much damage. The fighter guy went down, the tech guy went down. I, of course, with my thief, couldn't hit the entire campaign, and so that was no different. Just constantly missing with my attacks. Which is probably the other reason that I don't want to run Starfinder anymore, because the character I wanted to play can't hit anything. And I'd rather go back to a game where at least I understand why they do the things they do, because Starfinder just seemed to be, we're going to be twitchy with our rules so that we're twitchy with our rules, you know? I'm just like, ugh, why does my thief have to roll for stealth? I get it, okay? You gotta be stealthy to do your trick attack, but why is my entire thing, my one ability that matters, tied up into a skill check that's so high? Yes, I got a +10, but my guy would never roll above a 10 the entire time. I don't know what the deal was. It was terrible. To hit the last bad guys, I would have had to roll a 23. No, I would have had to roll a 13. I couldn't do it. I'd had to roll a 13 or higher, which all it would do was let me roll an extra D4 on my attack. I don't know. I didn't like it. I hated it, and I'm not sad that I'm not going back. I didn't like it. What else I got in here? I've got some metal and some brass and some medicine stuff. But yeah, so we eventually did. Ooh, I almost put my rid of that. We did eventually take them down and ended our campaign in Starfinder. And then the other DM, he was like, yeah, we should try out Pathfinder 2. And so then I was like, oh, you're gonna set up Pathfinder 2? And then he was like, no, I thought you were gonna set up Pathfinder 2. I don't have time to learn Pathfinder 2. And so I've got to go. I've got to get my motorcycle before I quit here. And so he after we finished Starfinder, he was like, "So we can do that Pathfinder 2 thing?" I'm like, "I'm not running a Pathfinder 2 game. I really don't want to try and memorize a whole new set of rules." And so he's like, "Well, what if I run it?" I'm like, "Well, if you want to run a game, I guess I can try and learn how to run a character." And so he's like, all right, we'll set one up then. And so I don't know when we're starting that, but because he's already running a campaign, so I don't know what his plans are. But I need to, if I'm gonna run another campaign, I have to figure out what I'm gonna do now. I don't know if I'm gonna go back to the Demon Plague, because we did the first book of the Demon Plague, and we still got 2 more books than that we could run. I definitely don't want to play Starfinder again. I might convert over to D&D to run the Starfinder, because I've done that before, and that's not too bad. Where I've just converted the weapons to work in D&D and then roll with it from there. Although that might be too hard, because their classes are very interesting on how they operate, but... Alright, well, with that, keep bearing the small things, leading the light, and I will talk to you later.